In this video, I'm talking all about the differences between a nutritionist and a dietitian. Hi, my name is Erica Stevens. I am an accredited sports dietitian based in Canberra in Australia. This channel is all about nutrition and sports nutrition. Okay, it's one of the most common questions that I hear in consultation. What is the actual difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian? I am often referred to as a nutritionist. I do think that that is a more well-known term and a more commonly used term in reference to someone that works in the nutrition space. However, yes, I am a nutritionist and I am also a dietitian, and I'm going to tell you the difference. Okay, this is as it applies to Australia. So in Australia, you can become a registered nutritionist with a, I think, 3 or 4 year undergrad bachelor degree in nutrition. Actually, I'm not sure that a nutritionist does 4 year undergrad. I think generally it's just 3, but I don't know, the uni system has changed so much in the last 10 years, so I just don't know anymore how it works. Except to say that a dietitian will, generally speaking, have done more years at university than a registered nutritionist. So that's how you can become a registered nutritionist. To become an accredited practicing dietitian, that's what it's called in Australia. In America, it's actually called a registered dietitian, but here we call it an accredited practicing dietitian. To become one of those, you will definitely need to do at least a 4 year undergrad nutrition degree, or you might do a 3 year undergrad followed by a 2 year master's degree. So they're the two most common ways. The difference between a 4 year undergrad who then goes on to become a registered nutritionist versus a 4 year undergrad with someone that goes on to become an accredited practicing dietitian is that the final year in the 4 year degree for a dietitian will be a practical component. So when I went through my master's program, we had to do, this is going to test my memory because it was a long time ago. I think we did 10 weeks in a hospital, 2 of those, a public health practical, and food service. So yeah, I've got the weeks wrong, but it was 6 months. So you go to 2 different hospitals. Within one of those hospitals, you do a food service component, so you understand the food service system in a hospital setting, and a public health prac, which is usually in sort of a government organisation. So 6 months worth of prac, basically. In the master's program, we did 6 months prac followed by 6 months of research. So we did like a mini thesis. I'm not sure if that happens in the undergrad. It probably does. So anyway, that's the difference. There's sort of 2 different ways, but in order to become what we call an accredited practicing dietitian, you have to have done prac in a hospital, in a clinical setting, and have mentorship for your first year out of uni. So that is the main difference in how you qualify to be one or the other. Okay, so that's the difference between how we become either a nutritionist or a dietitian, but what is the difference between what our skill set is and what jobs we are capable of doing? So essentially, a registered nutritionist has not done prac in a hospital setting or in a clinical setting, or had mentorship from those that have been working longer than they have. And so a registered nutritionist is not able to prescribe diet for someone, so they cannot give medical nutrition therapy to an individual. So if someone came to a registered nutritionist and said, please, can you write me a meal plan? I have high cholesterol, I play sport on the weekends, and they think I have pre-diabetes, a nutritionist is not qualified nor insured to provide that person with a meal plan or with detailed dietary advice. A dietitian, on the other hand, because of their background and their practical experience in a hospital, in a clinical setting, and are mentored through their first year, they are then capable of prescribing diet, based on someone's individual requirements. So whether or not someone has a medical condition or not, a dietitian is able to prescribe diet and prescribe very detailed dietary advice. And that's really the biggest difference. And I think it's not well known that a nutritionist and a dietitian have a different skill set. And they work in very different settings. So to give you some examples of where a nutritionist might work versus where a dietitian might work, a nutritionist would tend to be based more in a public service type role, so sort of working on, I guess, health policy and things like that, so broader perspective changes for society. Whereas a dietitian will tend to work more in a face-to-face role, an individual basis role. So that's why in a hospital setting you only have dietitians, you do not have nutritionists. And in order to practice as a sports dietitian, you need to also be an accredited practicing dietitian. So if you are working in an elite team and a player has type 1 diabetes, for example, or a player does have a medical condition, you are still capable of prescribing diet for that person, but it's just in a sports setting. So you need the clinical background to be a sports dietitian as well. So that's where you might see some differences in the types of work that people do. What is a problem in Australia is that the word nutritionist is not protected, and nor is the single word dietitian. So you can call yourself a nutritionist and just be anyone. Damn, that's annoying. In terms of dietitians, you can do a degree that would qualify you to be an accredited practicing dietitian, but if you don't go through the process of becoming an accredited practicing dietitian, which does involve that mentorship option, and it does require ongoing professional development within a professional body, you can still call yourself a dietitian, but you cannot call yourself an accredited practicing dietitian. So there's a difference between if you just see the word dietitian and if you see the term accredited practicing dietitian. So the APD, or the accredited practicing dietitian status, is protected, but the others are, they don't tell you a lot about the person. So that's a real issue for obvious reasons. Those obvious reasons are that the internet's a big place. It contains a lot of information, and there can be, misinformation and a lot of opinion pieces that exist on the internet, and people might use the term nutritionist to describe who they are, but they may not have any experience with clientele. They also might not have any university degrees in nutrition. So while there can be some fine articles out there that people have written that are correct, or that are just opinion pieces, and you can tell it's an opinion piece and the person makes it clear that it's an opinion piece, there are people that do take it too far and do sell meal plans despite having no medical nutrition knowledge, no formal medical nutrition knowledge. So that's where the nutrition world is not great. But it's okay. We have accredited practicing dietitians, we have accredited sports dietitians, and I think that those professions are very big now. We have, I think in Australia, something like 6,000 accredited practicing dietitians. There's a lot less accredited sports dietitians because that does require ongoing further knowledge and courses and professional development, but we still have a lot of sports dietitians as well. So our profession, or both those professions, are growing in Australia, and I think they're becoming much more well recognised. And I think little videos like this help the broader community, which is you guys, to know what the difference is. And if you read something online, you can scroll to the bottom first and just check and see who wrote it. And then you know whether to put a bit more time and effort into reading it, or maybe just move on. So yeah, I think it's not unique to nutrition. I think every profession, I guess, struggles with this, and it wouldn't be too hard for me on my platform to write an article about the law and just give people law advice. I would never do that, but I could, and it's just the same. It's the same issue that we have in the nutrition space with people that maybe are a lawyer and are writing about nutrition, and they don't necessarily get it right. So yeah, we all can probably give an example in our own profession of where people cross the line into a space that they shouldn't, and yeah, so it's not unique to us. Anyway, that's the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian. So if you see those words, you'll know the difference. And if you see the word nutritionist on its own in Australia, you know that it doesn't necessarily mean anything. So good luck out there on the internet. And I'll see you in the next video.